On a sunny morning, Bota woke up feeling excited for a new day. Bota, the curious child who loves nature and exploration, decided to go on a trip to the forest near his home. He packed his small backpack with a notebook, a pencil, a magnifying glass, and a water bottle. He knew this trip would be filled with discoveries, and he wanted to record everything. Bota began his journey in the forest. He walked slowly, listening to the sounds of singing birds around him. He started recording the birds' sounds in his notebook, trying to identify their species by their different calls. As he walked, Bota stopped to observe a group of ants working hard to carry food to their nest. He used the magnifying glass to watch the ants closely and noticed how they worked together with precise organization. He wrote in his notebook about the ants' cooperation and teamwork. Continuing on, Bota found an unfamiliar flower. He stopped to draw it in his notebook, trying to describe its colors and shape as accurately as possible. He wondered what type of flower it was and began thinking of ways to learn more about it. As he continued his journey, Bota heard the sound of water. He followed the sound until he reached a small stream flowing slowly. He noticed how the rocks formed at the bottom of the stream and how they varied in size and shape. He sat on a rock by the stream to take a break and wrote in his notebook about the beauty of the water and its gentle flow. After a while, Bota began to observe the sky. He noticed that the clouds had changed since the beginning of his trip. The clouds were initially scattered, but now they had gathered and thickened. He noted his observations in his notebook and began to wonder about the reasons for the changes in cloud shapes and how they affect the weather. While sitting under a large tree, he saw a colorful butterfly land on a nearby flower. He watched it carefully and noticed its bright colors and beautiful wing patterns. He wondered why some butterflies are so colorful. Writing in his notebook about the butterfly and its colors, questioning the role of colors in protecting it from predators. As he continued his journey, Bota saw a squirrel jumping between the trees. The squirrel was gathering nuts and storing them in the tree trunks. Bota wrote about the squirrel's movements and speed, wondering how the squirrel knows where to store its nuts over time. Bota stopped under a tree with large twisted leaves. He collected some fallen leaves and began to draw them in his notebook. He tried to identify the type of tree by the shape of its leaves. He noticed that the leaves varied in color and shape, writing his observations about the differences between the leaves of various trees. As he walked, Bota noticed that some trees in the forest were very tall while others were short. He began to think about the possible reasons for this difference. He wondered about the effects of sunlight and water on tree growth and wrote about it in his notebook. While observing the forest, Bota heard different sounds coming from a small bird perched on a nearby branch. He sat quietly and tried to listen to the various sounds the bird made. He began to wonder about the meaning of these sounds, writing in his notebook about the types of sounds he heard, questioning whether they expressed certain needs or messages among the birds. Bota continued exploring the forest until he reached a small pond. He noticed frogs jumping in the water and making loud sounds. He sat by the pond and watched the frogs' movements and the strength of their jumps.